MHA Podcast. MHA Podcast.
MHA Podcast.
Hey, I am hosting the show, Quinn.
I'm sorry.
You are taking the word right out of my mouth. Todd's drooling at the mouth. Let me get you a tissue right here.
I'm worried that he's Nick Foles.
I see the word regression plastered all over his stats.
Well, and I cheated a little bit here.
You bastard, how could you? This is a cheat-free zone, a Tom Brady-free zone, and you're bunking it up.
If I want to win a fantasy championship, I don't want my quarterback doing that crap.
I have Theo Riddick in front of.
Okay.
What the
Wow, Eddie Lacy's going to be great. How could you, in your right mind, in your sane mind, Eddie Lacy's going to be great?
I don't like doing it, but I'll agree with Todd. I totally disagree with Todd.
Especially with Quain, I hate drafting next to Quain. I'm gonna have that bottle of tequila right next to me. See, people should be listening to the show just to strategize around us. How about that week one? A lot of amazing storylines, great point totals, surprising performances, superstar duds, and some wild finishes here on this first weekend of fantasy football. So glad you're joining us on this kind of on-the-fly episode of the MHA podcast, but myself and Mikey were like, hey, let's put together a podcast about the first week. There was a lot going on, and we just thought we would, go by the kind of wind in our sails, I guess, if you will. Mikey, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Looks like I'm going to win this week. So it's good.
Yeah, I guess that's good. You win, I won't. I have more points than you, but I'm going to lose.
Yeah. Does that really count for anything?
It doesn't, really, because, the only thing that matters at the end of the season, based on points, is as if you're tied with somebody. But if you win, then you get the win, and that's what's important, right?
Exactly.
So there you go.
You can have the points. I'll take the winner.
Okay, well, that's just great. I would rather switch spots with you, but that's all right. So what are we going to talk about on the show? We'll catch you up on some injuries. We'll talk about kind of the matchups in the Mile High Affiliates League. We'll kind of go through those. We'll talk about some guys that were winners, some guys that were losers. I'm going to try to figure out a new name for those as we go along if this podcast catches on. We'll talk about some guys' performances, if they were the real deal or if they were really playing in Fluke City. And we'll tell you some guys you might want to pick up on the waiver wire. So we'll kind of see how this goes. It's the first one. It's just kind of off the cuff, so we'll see how it goes. So we'll go through these injuries real quick. And one that falls so near and dear to Mikey's heart is Delaney Walker, out for the season. He broke his ankle, also dislocated it. I guess they're saying some ligament damage. Tough to see. That was a pretty gruesome injury there, Miguel.
Very gruesome. It's not like tight ends aren't trash already. So it just gets worse for me going forward.
Well, worse for you. That's better for the rest of us, I guess. Marcus Mariota dealing with an elbow injury. Don't know what the update is on him. They're still evaluating him. As a Corey Davis owner, I pray to the fantasy football gods that Mariota's back because he seems to like Corey Davis. Jeremy Hill, which is pretty much non-existent in fantasy world, he's out for the season, tore his ACL. And if, Mikey, if you want to say anything about any of these guys, feel free to chime in. Do you want to say anything about Jeremy Hill?
Well, Jeremy Hill, at least, the little bit of carries he might have gotten is just going to go out to Burkhead, James White, maybe Sony Michelle. So it's not a big deal.
Another running back at least out of the mix. And Mikey, if you can't tell, is calling in because we can't get together every Monday. So not that I've spent all day with him yesterday. I've had enough of him. We'll just have him call in. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully everything works out on the edited version. Aaron Rodgers suffered a knee injury in the first half. He was carted off and came back and played in a tremendous game. Ended up with 50 points. Probably one of the more spectacular moments in NFL history, in my opinion, in Aaron Rodgers' career. Does he ever just cease to amaze you, Mikey?
No, I take a one-legged Aaron Rodgers over
No doubt. I think Mikey even said before they even kicked the ball off to Aaron Rodgers was, okay, what's Chicago going to do now? Because we already figured, and Mikey already figured, that Aaron Rodgers was going to go down and score a touchdown, and he did. Incredible. So we're hoping that he's going to be okay. He says he's going to play next week. We'll see how that all kind of lays out. Big-time injury that helped Mikey was Leonard Fournette, hamstring injury. left after scoring 7 points really early in that game. It looks like he was going to rack up some good point totals. Coaching staff says it's minor, so we hope for Kilgore Trout, who drafted him with his first overall pick, that he comes back soon. Marquise Goodwin got blasted. I've not seen this hit yet. I heard it was pretty bad. He got hit in the thigh, and he's dealing with a bruised thigh. Ended up with 0 points, but he should be okay. Doug Baldwin in that Bronco game that I'm sure most of you guys watched got rolled up on. Ended up being an MCL tear. Could be out for a little while. I haven't heard the update on that for sure, but that's got to stink for Todd. He got 0 points from Baldwin, and a guy that was drafted in the 3rd round. So a guy that Mikey really liked, but it seemed maybe to avoid all that scenario going forward outside of the other league, I guess.
Yeah, and now it was on the opposite knee, too. So
oh, really?
2 bad knees going forward. So there you go.
That's too bad. He's a fun guy to watch. Tough to see. The last one I have on my list, and Mike, if there's another guy that I didn't mention, feel free to chime in. But Greg Olson, again, same foot, re-injured it, and could be out for a little while. So for all those that have Christian McCaffrey, relying on Devin Funchess, maybe DJ Moore, good opportunity with Greg Olson. Might be out for a while, maybe the end of his career. Who knows? We'll see the end of that. We'll kind of go through the matchups, and the top of my list is obviously my team. Can I just say, one of the – I was going to wait to talk about them later, but one of the losers, obviously, in this game is New Orleans Saints defense. Made Fitzmagic look like Fitzmagic. Negative 3 points, gave up 48 points to the Buccaneers. We saw – I'm sure, Mikey, you saw some of that Jets game, how many points the Jets put up today. But could you imagine Tampa Bay scoring 48 on New Orleans? Or anybody, for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. It just goes to show maybe New Orleans was a little bit fluky, eh?
Maybe. Although I heard a stat today that the Saints have lost their last 5 straight openers. And it's like in 7 of the last 9. So they're a slow starting team. I'm not ready to quite panic just yet. But, I mean, they have Buffalo next week, so maybe I give them another chance with whoever's starting over in that hellhole of Buffalo. But go figure that. Very tough. Kind of some of the other things that kind of stood out between me and Aaron. Oh, my goodness. How incredible is Tyreek Hill? I just saw the highlights, what he was able to do. You obviously know, Mike, I was a big Patrick Mahomes detractor. Didn't think he was good. He was a new quarterback. He only had that one game against the Broncos, a team that was checked out. But man, oh man, they put Tyreek Hill in space. He took advantage. He went up and got he had to go up tall to grab some catches and ended up with 33 points, 3 touchdowns. What an incredible performance by Tyreek Hill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he pretty much did everything. Get that guy in space and it's just toast. Defense is toast. Incredible. 33 points. Almost scored as much as Aaron's quarterback. Incredible.
Yeah. I think we should call him Weapon X going forward. He could beat you with his feet. He could beat you with his hands. He had a kickoff return touchdown. Man, oh man. Weapon X. That is an incredible dude to watch. What else stood out in this Lemonheads versus Line Rip matchup, Mikey? Good or bad?
Well, for me, on the good side for Aaron was Mike Evans. I mean, he was coming off a pretty bad year last year. He had 7 catches for 147 and a touchdown. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, part of the Fitzmagic fun and excitement for sure. A lot of points scored in that game. Fitzmagic looked incredible. We'll talk a little bit more about him as we go along, maybe the free agent section or the real deal or fluke city. I will say I'm excited at least that my Chargers kind of fiasco, or I won't say fiasco, that's kind of a bad term, but my Chargers fun fiesta kind of panned out to get 68 from Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen with 19, Melvin Gordon with 22. I even had Mike Williams on the bench who had 9. Austin Eckler had 18. Maybe it's just to start my Chargers every week. But I'm excited to at least see that going forward.
Yeah, they pretty much scored all your points.
Yeah, they.
Everybody else, they kind of, pooped the bed.
Yeah, Corey Davis had 9, but yeah, Alex Collins, we'll talk about in our loser section, and we'll see Well, that's like Matt Breida didn't do too much. Very disturbing. Jay Ajayi really set the tone for Aaron, 20 points, and he pretty much beat me by that number, a little less than that. But so way to go there, Aaron. Congratulations. That's the last I'll say of that. What else do we got here? Butterfingers versus Miles. Actually, no, the next one we have is Tamales and Kilgore. Just give me some of your quick thoughts on this matchup. I mean, looks like you're going to win this game based on some of the obviously, we talked about the 4 net, but what stood out to you in this matchup?
Emmanuel Sanders really broke out for me. 22 points, he had 10 catches for 135 and a touchdown. I thought he would be good because they've put him in the slot, and that's kind of where Keaton likes to throw over the field.
Yeah.
But I really wasn't expecting the kind of breakout that he had week 1. Really, did a very nice job for me. In fact, all of my receivers did pretty well. Running backs, also a little bit desired for me. That 4 out of Kareem Hunt was kind of disappointing for my first-round pick.
We'll talk more about Kareem Hunt later. But what I had in my notes was your three-headed wide receivers, exciting to go forward. Royce Freeman, how concerned are you with Philip Lindsay, who came in, looked incredible? I was surprised to actually see him on a team, but I guess we live in Bronco land, so I guess that's supposed to happen. He's on a team. He ended up with 15 attempts, 71 yards. He had 3 targets, caught a couple of those, and had that one long touchdown pass. Are you concerned as a Royce Freeman owner going forward?
I'm not really concerned. I mean, they both had the same amount of carries. It's just more of a matchup thing, and I kind of heard Vince Joseph say today that they're just going to ride with whoever has the hot hand between the two. So, it's one of those things that, Freeman's more the big kind of back, Lindsay's the more speedy receiving back. So, for me, it's just going to play whoever has better matchup at this point.
Also for Kilgore Trout, we mentioned Goodwin, got 0 points. He got hurt. Evan Ingram was a big part of that. He only had 2 catches for 18 yards, but it looks like he's going to be a big part of that team going forward. Dalvin Cook had a fumble, but had double digits. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, that was kind of the big kind of talking point. Who was going to do what? Who was going to score more points? Is it going to be more Diggs for touchdowns? Thielen with points. Thielen had 11 points in the game. Stephon Diggs had 11 points. So, Mikey, I'll put you on the spot. Who would you rather have going forward, Adam Thielen or Stephon Diggs?
I'm going to keep with my answer from the previous podcast. I'm still going to go with Diggs because there's more big play potential. I know we're in a PPR league, but I like Diggs more.
He was definitely Kirk Cousins' favorite target in preseason, but he was actually out-targeted he was out-targeted by Thielen. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. I think they're both going to be effective. They didn't run the ball very well. I mean, Dalvin Cook had 40 rush yards. Latavius had a bunch of carries at the end of the game. And so we'll see if that ends up affecting Cook going forward. But it looks like this offense is going to be solid. But with that defense being so stout, they may not have to score as many points. And we kind of said that before. Let's go to the next matchup. We were talking about Butterfingers and bye week before. Big week from Miles, who's got 150 points with 3 players currently going. And Marshawn Lynch, Todd Gurley, and Jordy Nelson. Lynch already with a touchdown underneath his belt. Some of the things that stood out, I don't know. I was kind of excited to see T.Y. Hilton put up 13 points. And I know that's not a lot of points, but for Todd, who didn't even have T.Y. Hilton in his rankings, I hope he sees that and makes better decisions going forward.
Oh, for sure. And, T.Y. Hilton, as I've made mention on podcasts, when he has Andrew Luck tied to him, he's the top 10 receiver. That's been proven in the past. So, yeah, Todd made a mistake by not having him in his rankings. That's a big-time mistake. He's going to be fine as long as Andrew Luck is healthy. And
speaking of mistakes, Todd Diamond decided to wait on a whole round. We talked about this on the last podcast, about him waiting on taking, he could have picked Kirk Cousins. Instead, he waited, didn't get him, got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan had 29 points, looked awful. Didn't have any touchdown passes, had an interception. Man, oh man. You hope Matt Ryan plays a little better. Maybe it was just that first week. But with Bortles on his bench, that could be a problem for Todd going forward.
It could be. I kind of made mention that, if Kirk Cousins was his number one guy at that point in the draft, he should have chased it. And he kind of bit him in the butt in the first matchup of the week. But I think Matt Ryan will be fine. I mean, he's good enough. He's not elite, but he's good enough for, it could be just first week. They're playing the defending champs on the road on a Thursday night. I think he'll be fine going forward.
One of the other things that stood out, obviously a big talking point, not just in fantasy world, but in NFL world, is how about James Conner from bye week? 30 points. Incredible day with Le'Veon Bell watching at home, tweeting out. Bye week, picked him with his very last pick in the 17th round. Here's my question to you, Mikey. You can tell me if you like the performance. I'll kind of spew out the numbers here for James Conner. While I do that, I'm going to ask you this question. You can think about it. Should you bye week sell high and get something for Conner, or should he hold on to him for a couple months? But while you think about that, let me just throw out his stats here. So for James Conner, 135 rush yards, 31 touches, 2 rushing touchdowns, 5 receptions, 57 receiving yards. He did have a fumble. It was a pretty crucial fumble. But, man, he was out there for every offensive play for the Steelers. So, Mikey, back to the question. Should Miles sell high on him now, or should he keep him going forward and use him to accumulate those types of potential type of points every week? What would you do?
I would keep him.
Really?
Here's why.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't know when exactly Le'Veon Bell's coming back. He could come back next week. He could come back 8 weeks from now. And if you're Miles, you want to pick up wins while you can. If Connor is the starting running back from now until week 6 or 7, if Connor's going to help him pick up wins now, that's going to help secure a playoff spot, I keep him, especially where we're in a league where running backs are incredibly important. They're not easy to find. And Connor's a guy, like you just said, that he played on every single play of the game. You really don't find that at all. With the exception of about, 6, 7 guys maybe. So, yeah, I would keep him.
All right. What if Miles could trade him in for another running back? That let's say we know that Le'Veon Bell's not coming back till week 10. Do you try? Let's say someone offered him someone like, I'm just looking at the draft board. Let's say Kevin, who's got some depth to his running back position, trade someone like Isaiah Crowell, who had a great night tonight, 22 points, upside there. People are going to like what they see from him. Let's say that Miles wanted to try to get him to try to help bolster that in case Connor does go, and then all he's left with is Gurley, who's not bad. Obviously, he's one of the best, number 1 pick. But then he's got Marshawn Lynch after that, depending on how you like him. Sony Michel he's got on his bench. And really, that's only his other running back. So would you trade Connor for someone like Isaiah Crowell, or at least a running back that could help you past Week 10 when the playoffs come around?
No, if I'm in my stand pat, Isaiah Crowell, you got to do a little bit better than that. Not to be mean to Isaiah Crowell, and he did have a really good game today, but he only had 10 carries. One of them was a big long rush, poor tackling. It's hard to buy into that. Dual threat like Connor, I'm keeping him unless somebody kind of ups the ante and gives me, a running back that's a little bit better than that.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say about this Butterfingers versus bye week? Is there something I missed? Barkley really had one big long run, only averaged like 2.5 yards per carry, but still ended up with 19 points, had a couple of receptions. Anything else about this matchup?
I'm just going to throw this one out here for Todd and a couple of rookies that he drafted really early. Ronald Jones, inactive.
Healthy
Michael
inactive.
Gallup, 1 catch.
Right.
So, there's that.
So, a couple of guys he drafted early, not really panning out. I will say a guy that I was kind of upside on and played really well was Kenny Stills. He was on the bench, but that dude's good. Good player.
But no Jarvis Landry in there, and he's their top playmaker now.
All right, let's keep moving on here, Miguel. Let's go to Cooper Cousins versus Gonzo Cats. So far, Line Rip's gonna beat me, and Mikey's gonna beat Kilgore. Bye week is gonna beat Todd. So let's go to this matchup. And another one looks like it's gonna be in the books, even with the the Raiders game still currently going on. Gonzo Cats up one. Where are we at here? Where did the total go? I'm missing the total. It's having a problem with the page. There we go. 161 to 118. Mikey, I'll let you start this one. Anything stand out to you about this matchup?
Yeah, Chris Hogan kind of stood out. I mean, he was somebody that I wasn't all that high on, at least compared to everybody else.
Me neither.
Part of it is now that Edelman's out for those first 4 games, it would seem like he would get a lot more of the action. But what's gone on is with Edelman gone, Brandon Cook's gone, Chris Hogan then actually becomes the number 1 receiver. Chris Hogan is a decent receiver. I don't think that people pay attention to the fact that means he's always getting the team's top, coverage guy now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's still Chris Hogan. So Chris Hogan versus, top down corner, I don't know. That could be, you could see, some low scores going forward for him, at least until Edelman gets back.
I've been saying it for over a year. I don't know what the big deal about Chris Hogan is. He's never had anything over, I think, like 45 catches. He's just part of the system in the right spots. And you're right. He's got to face the top corner from the opposing defense at 1 point. So I was not surprised to see that. How about your boy? And I know you're a big Andrew Luck proponent. I don't know if you've seen the highlights. I have not seen all of his highlights, but 61 points, 39 completions. He did have a pick, but 2 passing touchdowns. Are you excited to see? I mean, you have him in our other big league, but are you excited to see what you saw from Andrew Luck yesterday?
I am. Well, and here's the thing that I love about him as he was healthy, is the Colts defense is awful.
Yes.
They're going to be bad. They're going to be bad all season.
Throw.
Indianapolis. They're pretty bad. Andrew Luck's going to have to throw the ball all year long. It's not like they have great running backs. They're going to be giving up a lot of points. They threw the ball 53 times yesterday.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he's going to end up getting a lot of just based on completions. Now, with that said, if he ends up having to throw 50 times a game, he could be, dead within the first 5 weeks. So, you never know. But, yeah, it's great to start 61 points. That's awesome.
So Andrew Luck looking great. Julio, great, 19 points. A.J. Green, 14 points. Kenyon Drake, a little less surprising, but that could have been maybe based on script. Frank Gore got a lot of carries, just ended up having more yards per carry. I will say, Joe Mixon looking good, Miguel. I know you weren't big on Joe Mixon, but he looked pretty shifty out there yesterday.
Yeah, and what I really liked about Joe Mixon yesterday was that on third downs he was in the game.
Yeah.
And they were actually using him in passing situations and not Gio Bernard. So, yeah, if he's truly a 3-down back, then, that could be definitely a steal for the Gonzo Cats.
Yeah, Bernard, 1 attempt rushing, 1 target receiving. Joe Mixon, folks. I just want everybody to know that, I drafted a good portion of Gonzo Cats. I wish I just drafted my team as a good draft as I did drafting other teams. I don't know what that's about. Some of the other things.
Sometimes that's the way.
That's the way it works. I will say I'm a big Randall Cobb guy. 22 points. I just knew it. And number 2 guy with Aaron Rodgers. I wish I would have drafted him, but didn't. And he played really well. Baltimore's defense was really good. 20 points. But yeah, I mean, Chris Hogan, LaShawn McCoy. I don't think any of us are surprised about LaShawn McCoy with just 3 points. But Gonzo Cats has a good team. Even had Deion Lewis on the bench with 19. He has Tyler Lockett on the bench. He's a pretty stacked team, and I'm not excited to see how he does going forward, but at least for Dylan, he's got some options on the bench with Philip Lindsay, who had 16 points. TJ Yeldon, if Leonard Fournette ends up being hurt for a while, he's got him on his bench, and obviously with Le'Veon Bell out on his bench, definitely pretty tough going forward. The next matchup, let's go to Kevin with Globex Corporation, taking on the Belt Sanders, and we were talking that maybe that Saints trio would do some damage, and boy, did they ever, having to try to come back against Tampa Bay, who put up that 48-burger. So for the Belt Sanders, his trio of Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas combined for 182 points. Oh, actually, no, 139 points. That's more points than I had with all of my guys, Miguel.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I think everybody knew the matchup kind of swung the way of Kamara this week. I mean, 36, I'm not going to say that's not surprising, but I thought he had a good matchup week one the whole time. And then, well, yeah, just kind of the way the game swung, it just let Drew Brees kind of go ballistic, and they kind of needed Michael Thomas in that game kind of come from behind. So, yeah, just an incredible week for the Saints.
The one thing I love about Michael Thomas is that he is incredibly efficient. Like his first 2 years, just how his numbers kind of came about, how many catches he had per target. And just yesterday, 16 catches and 17 targets. And so that is it's amazing to me. I mean, you have Drew Brees, who's the most accurate quarterback in the history of the NFL. But to be able to get 16 or 17, he had 180 yards receiving, the touchdown. He even had a fumble, or he'd have more than 29 points. So, man, and Kamara, just so good. He only had 29 rushing yards, which stood out, but it didn't matter when they were having to play from behind the entire second half. 9 catches, or 112 yards receiving, a touchdown. Man, oh, man. On the other side for Kevin, I know he was your pick to win it all, and he had a pretty good day. He just ran up against the Belt Sanders for a nice little standing there. But, I mean, Russell Wilson had 44. Hopkins, maybe you figure his total would be a little higher than 11, but Watson didn't play well. We'll talk more about Watson later. Howard was good with 14. But, man, oh, man. The one thing you can tell me if there's anything that stood out to you, but how about 3 points for Derrick Henry? 26 rush yards, just 1 catch. It was the Deion Lewis show yesterday.
Yeah, and that's, depending on how things go for the Titans, especially if Gabbert's in there, I would expect to see more Deion Lewis. You kind of got the feeling that if they're behind, it's Deion Lewis. If they're ahead, it's Derrick Henry. And that's just going to be the way that it's going to be going forward.
And speaking of that, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mikey. So the next 3 opponents for Derrick Henry and the Titans: Houston, Jacksonville, and Philly. And it sounds like all Deion Lewis games to me. So maybe I can...
The Houston, Jacksonville, those are divisional games. Those are kind of like go-either-way games. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I didn't see it, but I heard he had a 60-yard... Derrick Henry had like a long 60-yard touchdown run that was negated by a hold by Delaney Walker. So it's in there. If he has this touchdown, maybe we're not as concerned. But I don't know. That's why I didn't really have Derrick Henry high on my list, because I thought if Deion Lewis could show anything, which he did, Deion Lewis could really be a thorn in his side going forward. Anything else you want to say about this matchup, Miguel? Anything I missed?
Well, it's just kind of the same thing that I said about Joe Mixon. I'd like to kind of relate the same thing with Jordan Howard. They're trying to make him a 3-down back. He was in there on 3rd downs. It was more Jordan Howard and less Trey Cohen. So, yeah, if he's 3-down back, Jordan Howard's going to have a big year.
Totally agree. I also liked what I saw from Chris Thompson. I didn't even think he was going to be ready for week 1, and he was even questionable really for most of the week leading up to it. But Chris Thompson, 65 yards rushing, 6 catches, 63 yards receiving, and had a receiving touchdown. Now, Adrian Peterson obviously was great. Can we at least give Todd credit for picking the right guy for Quayne when he asked about which guy to go with? He actually, Quayne gave us kind of a question to pick for his flex. It was like Allen Robinson and Adrian Peterson, Duke Johnson, amongst other folks. And Mikey's like, he should go off of that and go with Cooper Kupp. And I said Duke Johnson. Todd says Adrian Peterson. Peterson, I think, came up with 19 points. There you go. Way to go, Todd. Let's give him an olive branch. Nice job, Todd.
Hey, now wait a minute. There's still another half left in the game. So, yeah, Cooper Kupp has 2 points right now, but I have to say that he can't come up with another 17 points in the second half.
I'm going to say it right now. That's a lot of points in one half of play. Well, we'll see. If he comes back and gets 1 more point than Adrian Peterson, then I'll give you the credit. Is that what you want to hear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's keep moving on here. NWA versus CUP. We kind of talked about his flex guy. He ended up going with Cooper Kupp. He's got 2 points. But what kind of stood out to you in this matchup?
Well, this matchup was kind of interesting. I mean, there was a lot of... I thought there was some balance here. I mean, so far, at least you look at with NWA, who is currently in the league, he's got 1 point combined between Amari Cooper and Brandon Cooks. So that's not very good. Matthew Stafford, he was just awful. Probably the worst game I've ever seen him play tonight.
That was pretty awful.
And then, Christian McCaffrey, that one was a little bit surprising to me because all we heard during the offseason and during the preseason was he's going to be the bell cow. We want to get him 30 touches. Then yesterday, he only ends up with 10 rushing attempts. And he wasn't getting the touches inside the 10. So it almost kind of looked like last year at Christian McCaffrey, where he's getting the receptions, but not necessarily getting all the rushes.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. And, we saw Cam Newton kind of rush one in from inside the 1 yard line. So, yeah, that's tough. His numbers could be so much better. I'm sure Quinn drafted him with the idea that maybe he could put up more than 500 rushing yards. He's still going to put up those receptions. Oh, it's super surprising. With C.J. Anderson, a guy that kind of picked up to maybe do more of the first and second down work, and he ended up with just 7 attempts for 35 yards, and it's not like Cam Newton really put up a ton of pass yards either, so I'm not sure what they were looking for there, but he still ended up getting 11 points for notorious CUP. But yeah, Stafford, 4 interceptions. Man, oh man, he got beat up in that game too. Really tough to see. Brady was phenomenal for NWA. David Johnson, 15 points. Not terrible, just 37 rush yards. But man, Mikey, that Arizona offense is awful. And that's why I was saying that you shouldn't take him number 1 or number 2.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like they're just asking him to do everything, which he can.
Which is not a bad thing, right? Totally.
No, not a bad thing, but I mean, they got to give something. At least, the other team has to honor the pass. But yeah, they were so terrible yesterday.
Yeah, Buffalo.
Hey, Sam Bradford keeps getting to take people's money, so
Yeah. With notorious CUP, who's going to lose in a close. Well, I think he's going to lose. I mean, he's not out of it yet. Cooper Kupp, if he ends up having a big second half, it's big for him. It's big for Mikey. Cooper and Cooks, as Mikey mentioned, just 1 point through the first half. But something that could have helped with that was CUP went with Stafford over Patrick Mahomes. And, boy, how about a debut? I guess his second game of his career, but 51 points, 4 passing touchdowns. What do you think about Patrick Mahomes and going forward? Is he a guy that should be put over Stafford for Quinn going forward?
Possibly for the right matchup. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Carson Wentz, just the stat line. Not a lot of completion.
Right.
Overall, but yeah, those 4 touchdowns, that's big. Really props up his score.
And I will say, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to wait on this or talk about it now. With Patrick Mahomes, some of his passes were, in short territory. He had those couple shovel passes for touchdowns. So take that for what that's worth, too. If those end up being rushing touchdowns for Kareem Hunt, then his total would just be 2 touchdowns and a little less. So I think he benefits. I don't know if 51 is an every week thing for him, but when that offense is running really well, that's going to be tough for any defense out there for sure. Anything else in this CUP-NWA matchup, Miguel?
No, not really. I mean, if Josh Gordon becomes a thing, that'll be good for him. He had 1 catch yesterday, but that 1 catch was a touchdown, so I guess that's a good thing. But, yeah, other than that, I think we can move on.
Yeah, Gronk's good. Gronk is good. Hopefully he stays healthy. But Gronk is good. So I think we got every matchup in there, if I'm not mistaken. Think so. So we'll see. Let's go on to some winners and some losers. Mikey, was there a winner that stood out to you from yesterday?
How about Will Disley? I had never heard of him up until yesterday. And so, yeah, I mean, he came out against the Broncos defense, which, you know, was always really good, but kind of bad against tight ends. He kind of proves that theory. I don't think there's going to be a lot going forward. He's a winner for yesterday. 14 fantasy points. Nice job.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Broncos never great against tight ends. It seems to be the MO here in the Mile High City. I'm going to say Fitzpatrick. I know we kind of talked about him a little bit. Is definitely a winner. He had 21 completions, 4 touchdowns, had some long touchdown passes. How about this, Mikey? 12 rushing attempts, and he had a touchdown.
Yeah, 7 points overall. Probably the best of his career, and I really believe that you're probably never going to see that again, at least for him.
Should we pick him up as a free agent? He's kind of one of those guys that's on the waiver wire if someone needs a quarterback.
He will be picked up. I think it's okay for now. They've got a lot of good weapons in Tampa Bay. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's solid for like maybe 40 points a week kind of guy, which
it's not bad.
But I wouldn't, if you're expecting 60 or 70, yeah, it's not happening again.
The Buccaneers have their next 3 games, for those that are interested in picking them up. Home versus Philly, home versus Pittsburgh, and we saw TJ Watt go crazy in his defensive matchup, and at Chicago before a bye week. So those interested, those are his upcoming games here. Do you have any other winners, Miguel, or you want to talk about some losers?
Well, Philip Lindsay's a winner.
Yeah. Oh, man, that dude's quick. It looked like they had plays for him specifically. Is he a guy that I think Dylan has that he should be putting in his lineup more often?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's another guy that you can look at and kind of play the matchups. I mean, he's got Carlos Hyde on his team, he's got LaShawn McCoy on his team. LaShawn McCoy has a really brutal schedule, and I would never tell him to bench him for Philip Lindsay, but I wouldn't say I was doing the right situation either.
Right situation indeed. We kind of talked about the rest of the guys. I had Chris Thompson, Tyreek Hill, James Conner. Let's go to talk about some losers. We mentioned New Orleans defense got me negative 3 points. How about Big Ben? Now, we only got to see parts of that game. It didn't look like the weather was terrible, but we don't know. We weren't really there. But, I mean, there's this whole thing with Big Ben's good at home, bad on the road. Is Big Ben a loser, or is it just one of those bad weeks and he'll rebound and still be a top 5 to 10 quarterback?
I think he'll rebound. There is something to that good at home, bad on the road deal, and there was some weather in that game too. I'm not going to make excuses for him. 4 interceptions under any conditions is not very good.
It says 3 interceptions, but 2 fumbles too.
Yeah, it's just too many turnovers, but he'll figure it out. He's got so many weapons around him. He'll be okay.
How about another QB that had a bad day? Deshaun Watson, just 30 points, interception, a fumble loss. We were kind of talking about it, that Bill Belichick goes out there and shuts down the best players. Hopkins just had 11 points. There was a lot of bad throws from Deshaun Watson in some of the highlights I saw, but what do you think about him?
I think he'll be okay too. Yeah, I think, he just got Belichick yesterday. They kind of made it a point to kind of let Lamar Miller have his way and then just stop the passing game. So, yeah, I think he'll be all right going forward.
For Dylan's sake, is it Dylan who drafted him? Yes, for Dylan's sake, who drafted him in the 3rd round. You better hope he turns that around, or that's going to be quite the terrible situation at quarterback. The next couple of games for Deshaun Watson: at Tennessee, at home versus the Giants, and then a delicious matchup against Indianapolis. So plenty of opportunity to try to get back into it. I had Chris Hogan with 1 point. One of the questions I have for you in terms of that, Philip Dorsett is out there on the free agent market. Is he a guy that you think should get picked up, and do you expect 7 receptions and a touchdown from him until Julian Edelman gets here or gets back?
I think he should be picked up, absolutely. Like I said, if Hogan's going to be getting the number 1 cover corners. That's going to leave Dorsett on the number 2, and I would expect Brady to, target, and get the ball to him. So I think he'll be okay until Edelman gets back.
All right, so last one. Do you have any other losers?
How about Trey Burton?
Trey Boo Boo. Yes. I have him in 3 leagues.
All the hype on that guy.
I will say this, though, Mikey. He's a good blocker. He's athletic. He can get out in space. I just don't think Mitchell Trubisky's a good quarterback, and I've been saying that for the past year and a half or so. So I was figuring that Trubisky would use him when Allen Robinson busted up, because I'm not a big Allen Robinson guy. When Tyreek Hill is not on the field because they're trying to make Jordan Howard more of a 3-down back. I thought for sure Trey Burton would be the easy guy he would go to. I didn't go to him very often. I think it was just 3 total targets.
Yeah, and I'm just giving it a little bit of crap. Green Bay was actually one of the best teams against tight ends last year, so that might have gotten overlooked. So the matchup wasn't great.
Yeah, I'm not ready to give up on Trey Burton. I love his athleticism. He looks like he could be a good player. Any other losers before we move on?
Well, I mentioned Travis Kelce, but then that was a matchup play too. Never good against the Chargers, so yeah, he was kind of a loser.
He was definitely a loser at one point for where he was drafted, but I think he'll rebound. I think it was just a week 1 situation. People are going to be like, oh, Tyreek Hill is good? We better double team him.
I agree.
So last one from losers or winners, and this is kind of an interesting one. So Mikey, is Le'Veon Bell a winner or a loser after week 1? James Conner lit up the stat sheet, used him 31 times, as they probably would with Le'Veon, but the Steelers also didn't win against Cleveland.
Well, anytime you're losing almost $1 million a week, you're a loser.
Mikey, that is the best answer. That is the best answer you could come up with. Well done. So we'll go. We don't have a lot of time. I don't want to keep you here forever. Let's go through a couple of these. So is this real deal or fluke city? Is Mike Evans 7-catch, 147 yards, and 1 touchdown the real deal, or is it fluke city?
I think it's the real deal. I mean, he's shown that he is one of the top wide receivers, but he just has always had a problem with drops. And last year, a lot of it, and maybe this can be shown with Fitzpatrick in there, could have possibly, you could throw it on Jameis, having such a bad year last year. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a deal.
All right. I want him to fail just because he was terrible with me, but he's a good player. And I think if that offense stays, and they don't have to score 48, but if they can stay competitive, they can stay on the field and keep Fitzpatrick upright, I think he'll be a good good wide receiver this season. How about Kareem Hunt? You're very close to that situation. Is his 4 points, 49 rushes, no receptions? Is that real deal or fluke city?
It's fluke city. I'm not too concerned with that. Most of the volume went through Tyreek Hill yesterday. They got a big lead, so they didn't really need to use him too much in the passing game. I think he'll be fine going forward.
And I will say this, too. We mentioned kind of those 2 shovel passes that could have easily gone to him, and he could have scored 2 easy touchdowns. And for all those worried about Spencer Ware, just 4 touches in that situation. So I think he'll be fine. What do you think? We talked about this briefly, but Derrick Henry, real deal or fluke city?
Well, that's one of those that's all about the matchup, to be honest. So he's just kind of, like I said, whether or not Tennessee is competitive in these games, he could really, it could be the real deal that he's terrible this year. But if they're competitive, then I guess call it fluke city from this week.
Yeah, that's a tough situation. I was always concerned. I liked him a little bit better than you did. If he doesn't seem to bust out a big touchdown run, it doesn't seem like he accumulates a lot of points. He did get the first 8 touches of the game, and then Deion Lewis came in and out-touched Henry 21-3 after that. So I think with the upcoming schedule, as we mentioned, it could be a tough season for Derrick Henry. Last thing we'll go through, Mikey, waiver wire stuff. Fitzpatrick, Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton, the top QBs. You said Fitzpatrick will go. Are Flacco and Dalton guys that maybe owners should think about picking up going forward?
I think Dalton might be worth one. Flacco, I'm kind of wait and see on that guy. I mean, it was against Buffalo. They're pretty terrible. So, yeah, Flacco, I would wait on.
Yeah, Flacco, 52 points, 25 completions, 3 touchdowns, 47-3 victory, but I think that was more about the game itself than he is an actual incredible player. Dalton has some good weapons. If Joe Mixon's good and AJ Green continues, Joe Ross has the ability to be a good player. There's a lot of weapons there for Andy Dalton. Running backs, not a lot of great options. There was only 2 out there that had double-digit point totals, and both came from Baltimore. And Javoris Allen, who had 12, Kenneth Dixon had 10. Alex Collins definitely on the loser list this weekend. I was ready to rack up the points. He had a touchdown early in the game. He fumbled. I think he was punished a little bit. Game got kind of out of hand. The good thing for Alex Collins and his owner, Eric Lansing, is that Dixon got hurt, and he probably missed some time. So, interested in picking up Buck Allen, Mikey? Actually, I think he's already been. Well, no, he's out there because you dropped him. So, just someone pick him up.
Yeah, I mean, he's worth a pickup, so you don't have to worry about Kenneth Dixon carries going forward. Alex Collins is not going to be involved in the passing game at all. I think Alex Collins will be playing going forward, too, by the way. But, yeah, I mean, Buck Allen, again, matchup guy. You know, if you can find a team that struggles against pass-catching running backs, then, yeah, go ahead and pick him up.
All right, Mikey, we'll talk about some wide receivers. We talked about Phillip Dorsett, so we'll talk about the next 3 guys. I want you to rank these next 3 guys in order on how you would pick them up this week. You have Dante Pettis, the rookie, who had 11 points, 2 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown. He's from San Francisco. How about a Bronco favorite, at least way back, Brandon Marshall, 3 catches, 46 yards, a touchdown. And how about Willie Snead, Miguel? Yeah, Willie Snead on the show. 4 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdowns for Baltimore. Rank those guys, Pettis, Marshall, and Snead, on how owners should pick them up.
Wow, I can't believe you gave me those guys. I have 3 other free agents I'd pick up before them.
Wide receivers, too?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then you tell me, homie. I just picked the guys I saw up on the list. So if you have better options, throw them at me.
All right, well, Quincy Enunwa, the guy who had 15 points tonight for the Jets. Now, if you remember, before he got hurt, he was out all of last year. But, you know, he was a big-time playmaker for the Jets 2 years ago. So, and he looked like he had some pretty good chemistry with Darnold tonight. You know how I like slot guys. So that works in his favor as well. So he would be a guy. Geronimo Allison's a guy I mentioned a couple podcasts ago. He's now playing the other outside receiver spot for Green Bay. So he's kind of playing in that Devontae Adams spot from last year. Devontae Adams is playing in the Jordy Nelson spot.
Okay.
So Geronimo Allison's another guy. And then Ryan Grant, who kind of moved up to that Dante Moncrief spot in Indianapolis for a team that's going to be throwing a ton. Yesterday, kind of without anybody noticing, had 9 targets and 8 receptions. Yeah,
so there you go. Apparently, some good options at wide receiver. Mikey's the guy, the waiver wire guy. He has his options better than my options, perhaps. And so those are a lot of wide receiver options. Tight ends, Will Dissly, we kind of talked about. Eric Ebron, especially after Jack Doyle fumbled the ball in a late game situation. Any interest in Eric Ebron, who had 12 points, 5 targets, 4 receptions, 51 yards, and a TD?
Possibly. I'm going to be looking for a tight end. There's another kind of sleeper tight end that I'm trying to look at that I don't want to mention. So just keeping that quiet for now.
I wasn't going to say anything on this podcast about it. I didn't want to throw you out there, but you threw yourself out there. So there you go. So there you go. Is there anything else about week 1 you want to talk about at all? I think a lot of fun stuff, a lot of crazy stuff. You know, all summer we're like doing these podcasts, we're doing research, and we finally got to see the product on the field. Some amazing things, some things we expected, some not things. So I just thought while I was perturbed that I didn't get my week 1 win, there's still a lot of weeks left to go.
Well, yeah, you'll get back up on the horse. It just, you know, like championships are not won or lost in the first week. So you got plenty of time to lose some more and draft first overall next year.
You're saying I shouldn't trade away all my Chargers to get different guys?
Well, no, I mean,
Panic. No panic yet?
I think you're okay. No, I wouldn't panic just yet.
Before we get out of here, I'm just going to throw out the weekly matchups for next week. 0-1 Lemonheads will take on 0-1 Kevin Globex Corporation. 1-0 Tamales are going to take on 1-0 Gonzo Cats. 1-0 Bye Week's going to take on 1-0, we're pretty sure, NWA. Butterfingers, who 0-1, going to take on 0-1 Cooper Cousins. Kilgore Trout, who's 0-1, is going to take on 0-1 Notorious CUP. And then a couple of 1-0s going at it, Lion Rip versus Belt Sanders. So, Mikey, thanks for joining me on the show on this Monday night at 10:17. I'll let you get some sleep. I'll do the same, and hopefully I'll have this podcast out by tomorrow, because Wednesday, the big pickup day?
Yep, well, yeah, you got to get them in by Tuesday night, but yeah, Wednesday morning will be there.
So there you go. So we'll get this out, pick up the right guys, don't panic, and we'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.